Okay, we are going to continue this study guide adventure. Let me zoom in. All right, so we left off on question 24. It says solve the following system of inequalities by graphing. So if you remember, that means that we graph one inequality in shade, we graph another inequality in shade, and where they overlap is where all the solutions could be. So then the identify one ordered pair means I just have to pick an ordered pair in that double shaded region. So for this one, for this inequality, I'm going to rewrite it by, here we'll do 2x minus y is less than 1. So then my goal is to put it into slope intercept, right? So I'm going to subtract 2x, subtract 2x. So then I have the opposite of y is less than negative 2x plus 1. Can't have this opposite of y here. I can't have a negative y value. Sorry, that still looks pretty small. So I have to divide by negative 1. And then if you remember, when I divide by a negative, I flip the sign. So I'm going to have y is greater than 2x minus 1. So I'm going to start at negative 1 on my graph. And then I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, right? And just continue. I can go down 2, back 1, okay? Now, obviously, I can't use a straight edge right now because if you remember, yeah. So I'm just going to do my best, and I'm going to make as many points as I can, and then I'm going to connect them. And then I have to decide, do I shade on this side or do I shade on this side? So remember, we put 0 in for x and y. So is 0 greater than negative 1? Well, yeah. So I'm going to shade all of this. And I know I'm just using a pencil. You guys can use color pencils if you so desire. Okay, so that's my first inequality. My second one, I have to rearrange as well. So x plus 3y is less than or equal to 0. I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So now I have 3y is less than or equal to negative 1x. I'm just going to put the 1 there to help me with my slope. Divide by 3. Y is less than or equal to negative 1/3 x. So that tells me I'm going to start, because I don't have a y-intercept, I start at my origin, and then I go down 1 over 3. Down 1 over 3. Down 1 over 3. And I can continue it by going up 1 and back 3. Up 1 and back 3. Up 1 and back 3. I know this is exciting for you guys. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. Okay, so, sorry, I just noticed this. With this first line, it should be dashed, right? Because it's greater than, it's not greater than or equal to. So let me make sure that that looks super dashed for you. Some of you probably caught that and are like, Mrs. Marsh made another mistake. Okay, now I'm going to connect this line. Okay, and now I have to figure out where to shade it. Well, I can't use 0, 0 because that actually is right here. So I can use 1, 1, and if it works, I shade towards it. If it doesn't work, I shade away. So is 1 less than or equal to negative 1/3? Because if I do this times 1, and it's not, right? We know that 1 is greater than negative 1/3. So I'm not going to shade towards that. Instead, I'm going to shade under here. And then you can see that this, I'm going to really darken it here, is where it would double shade. Okay, so when I'm looking for an ordered pair as my solution, I can pick anything in this double shaded region. So I'm just going to pick negative 4, negative 4 as one of the possible solutions. Okay, so that's number 24. Let's move on to 25. All right, Morgan babysits during the summer for a family down the street. Each week she will earn $10 plus an additional $8 per hour. Use this information to complete problems 25 through 30. Okay, so our function, remember this is just like saying y. So the function of x equals, and we would say 8x plus that $10, just for being their employee, just for being their babysitter. Okay, so remember this is just like saying y equals, so don't let that confuse you, right? It's just a fancy way of saying y. So let's go ahead and make an input-output table. So if she doesn't work at all, remember she gets $10, just for being their babysitter. If she works 1 hour, now she has 18, right? So we're just going to continue to add $8 to each thing. So this would be 34, 42, 50, 58, and 66. Right? Yeah. Okay. So then they want us to graph it. Cool. So 0, she makes $10 at 0 hours. At 1, she's at like 18. 2 would be 26, right? So just bear with me while I graph this. I'm sorry, I just realized you guys can't see that whole thing. There you go. And then 58, and then I'm just going to have to stop right there. So then I'm going to connect those. Beautiful. What's the slope? Well, we know that she's making $8 an hour. So 8 over 1. What do the independent and dependent variables represent? Do you remember how independent is the x values and dependent is the y? Remember, you guys are the y and your parents are the independent. Okay, so the independent is hours worked. Okay, and then the dependent, remember, how much you make depends on how many hours you work. So that's why this is the earnings would be the dependent. Okay. How much will she earn if she works 15 hours? So we're just going to put 15 in for x, right? Because x was the hours worked. So I'm just going to use y because I don't know, it just makes more sense to me. So y will equal 8 times 15 plus 10. Let's see, 30, 60, 90, 120. So y would equal 130. Let me get my calculator. I don't trust myself right now. Hold on. 8 times 15. Yep. So that's 120 plus the 10 is 130. So she will make $130. How many hours will she need to work to make at least $100? So if we want to make $100, then that's where we're going to put in the place of the y. So 100 equals 8 times something plus 10. So then we would just solve for x. So we'll have 90 equals 8x. Divide by 8. X will be 11 and 1/4, right? Can't really work a fourth of an hour babysitting from personal experience as a mom. If I'm paying you to babysit and I'm already past the hour, I'm going to stay out and just get my money's worth and stay out for the whole extra hour. So we're going to round this up to 12. Okay, she's going to have to work at least 12 hours to make, or have to work 12 hours to make at least $100, right? So if she worked 12 hours, she would make 8 times 12 is 90. She'd make 106. That's not bad. Okay. Number 31. Find the slope for the given points, right? This is where we have slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? So if we label these x1, y1, x2, y2, so we would have 1 minus 5 over 6 minus negative 2, right? So we actually, this turns into adding. So I'm going to have negative 4 over 8, which can simplify to negative 1/2. That would be my slope. Same with number 32. I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember, I'm only labeling them with the 1s and the 2s because this is the first one I see. This is the second one I see. So I'm going to have 6 minus 6 over negative 4 minus 2. So I'm going to get 0 over negative 6. And 0 divided by negative 6. Just going to make sure I have this right. just going to be 0. So my slope is, well, yeah. And this tells me that this is a horizontal line. Right? If you remember Mr. Slopeface, positive, negative, undefined, and then a horizontal line has a slope of 0. Okay. All right, determine the slope of this line. So for number 33, we're going to find perfect intersection points, and we're going to find the slope. So I'm going to use this as a perfect intersection point, and I'll use this as a perfect intersection point. So my vertical change is -2, and my horizontal change is 3. So -2 over 3 is my slope. The y-intercept is where it crosses that y-axis, so that's going to be 0, 2. I know I have a -2 here for the slope, but the 2 is where it is on the y-axis. So then my equation in slope-intercept form, -2/3 x, because this is where my slope goes, plus 2, because this is where my y-intercept goes. Right, B, remember, stands for y-intercept. Okay, number 36, x equals 9. That means all x values are 9. That gives me a horizontal line. So that means my slope equals 0, right? If you go back up to Mr. Slopeface. Y equals -3. That tells me that, wait, hold on a second. I wrote that wrong. All of my y values, no, all of my x values are 9. That actually gives me a vertical line, guys. I'm losing it. This is a vertical line. So vertical lines, my slope is undefined. So if my y values are all -3, so we're looking here now at number 37, that gives me a horizontal line. And that tells me that my slope is 0. Woo! Why is the slope of a vertical line undefined? Well, because there's no change horizontally. Right? In order to have a slope, you need a vertical change and a horizontal change. And when you're not changing horizontally, you can't define that. So no change horizontally, right? Because your line would just be like this, and you would have no way to go up and over, or down and over, down and over. Okay. Next page. Number 39. For items 39 through 43, a line has a slope of 4 and passes through this point. Okay, write the equation in point slope form. Remember, point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So we're really just going to use the points. So we would have y minus -1, which remember turns to positive, equals 4 times the quantity x minus -3, which again turns to a positive. So to properly write this, I would say y plus 1 equals 4 times the quantity x plus 3. And then I stop. I don't have to do anything else there because that is point slope form. Okay, they want it left like that. Rewrite the equation in slope intercept. So I'm going to take my point slope and I'm just going to distribute and solve to get y by itself. So y plus 1 equals 4x plus 12. Subtract the 1 from both sides. Y equals 4x plus 11. So that would be my answer. Now they want it in standard form. And if you remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c, right? A can't be negative, a fraction, or 0. So we're going to take this, y equals 4x plus 11. We're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So now we have negative 4x plus y equals 11. Remember, a cannot be negative. So I'm going to divide everything by -1 to get rid of that. So I'm going to have 4x minus y equals -11. that would be my standard form. Then it says determine the x and y intercepts of this equation. Okay, so this is when we cover up an x or a y and we figure out what our opposite integer would have to be, like what our other value would have to be. I don't love that this is negative 11. That is not ideal. But if y is 0, okay, well, let's just make x 0. If x is 0, then what does y have to be? Well, the opposite of what would give me negative 11? Well, y would have to be 11, right? So if I would have 0 and 11 for my my y intercept. Okay, and then if y is 0, 4 times what gives me negative 11? Well, I'm going to do negative 11 divided by 4, and I'm going to get negative 2.75. This would be my x-intercept. So when I graph these, it's not going to be pretty. So 11 is actually going to be above the graph there. Cool. And then for my x-intercept, negative 2.75, 0. So those would be my x and y intercepts. Again, not pretty, but it'll do. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So then we graphed it, so 43 is done. All right, I'm going to stop right there, and this will be part 3, and then I'll do part 4.